Yes, indeed, back to normal programming after that period of national mourning. Everything seems to have returned to normal, but the discussions continue online and on the dailies. Karibu sana, this is the Morning Cafe. My name is Freddy Ndimuli. Exactly 7 days to the end of 2025, and now we resume our Christmas countdown officially, 64 days to Christmas. It is also the second day of our KCSE exams, which kicked off yesterday with many doing the oral examinations of French, Arabic, and other languages. Today we have the practical preparations for the home science exam, which will be conducted next week, but preparations continue between now and then. So KCSE down in earnest, over 996,000 candidates sitting for the exam. Meanwhile, KJSEA, which is junior secondary school exams, the first ever, as well as KPSEA, the grade 6 exams, will be conducted next week. Close to 2 million plus candidates sitting for those exams. So a lot of preparations on matters education. Let's take a look at the headlines today. Taifa leo wapelekana mbio. Nani hao? Tutarudi kurejelea kuangalia nani wanapelekana mbio. The Star, an uphill task. Oburu fights to steady ODM. People Daily, why Ruto needs ODM to win 2027 general election, and you realize that now the name Raila appears to have disappeared from the dailies. Now it's ODM and other faces and other people. Oburu Odinga now a big image on the front page of the dailies. Why Ruto needs ODM to win 2027 general election, at least Raila on the front page of the Daily Nation. What did Raila say? And there are different accounts from everyone. Everyone apparently talked to Raila in his last days, and everyone has an account of what Raila Odinga said. We'll be looking at that on the Daily Nation. Out with freedoms, and this one takes a different tangent altogether. That's a standard. We'll be taking a look at that. It has steered clear of the politics of the day. Matters business. Regulator removes hurdle for crypto insurance cover. That's a different story. That's a big one. On the front page of the Business Daily. We'll be having legislators as well as an advocate of the High Court today in studio for a panel on State of the Nation. James Gakuya, MP Embakasi North, Sabina Chege was a nominated MP, and Wakili Harrison Kinyanjui will be in studio starting at 6:30. So do stand by for that. Big conversations, the political ones as well as the legal ones. Another very interesting conversation today. We continue with part 2 of this interview with Pastor Dorcas Rigathi. Redefining the modern girl child. It's a conversation that started last week, and my colleague Arno Dida had a sit down with Pastor Dorcas, and this conversation will be continuing today, starting at 8 a.m. You don't want to miss this one. Very interesting perspectives on matters girl child. We cross over into the region and take a look at what's headlining. At least everyone has moved on from matters of mourning Raila Odinga. Even in Uganda, they talk about matters election. Daily Monitor, hotly contested constituencies. The Electoral Commission will this morning open doors for nomination for parliamentary candidates across the country, bringing to the 4 constituencies that have been earmarked as political hotspots in the January general election. And they've given this quite some coverage, pages 2, 3, 4, and 5. Remember, the presidential campaigns kicked off earlier this month. Now, nomination for the seats of members of parliament will be happening. And this paper has just mapped out some of the hotspots in Buganda, in Bunyoro sub-region, Northern, Ruwenzori, places like Kasese municipality and Bukonzo. Ankole, Isingiro, Mbara, Ndorwa, even in Busoga, Mbale City is a big one. Jinja Southeast constituencies, just some of the areas where will be considered hotspots, and probably a lot of focus will be there and as far as the campaigns are concerned for members of parliament. So that's the main story there on the front page of the Daily Monitor. Yes, it's the same theme even on the front page of the New Vision, matters 2026 elections. The Electoral Commission has issued guidelines for MP nominations. So this is a big one, nominating MPs from the different parties. The date for the general election has been set for January 15th in Uganda, both the presidency as well as members of parliament. So that's a big one there. Na pale chini, hundreds cross to NRM. This is something that we used to witness a few years back, was when you get closer to elections and you see a lot of defections, probably to the ruling party. It's what's happening now. Now hundreds are crossing to NRM. NRM is a National Revolution Movement Party, led by the incumbent Yoweri Museveni, and you see Yoweri Museveni there in that picture receiving all these defectors to his party. Pale juu, Uganda gets first float plane to fight maternal deaths. And presidential candidates step up hunt for votes. At least they make mention of the other presidential candidates, including Bobi Wine, Chagulani, there on the front page. So campaigns, definitely the big story in Uganda. Crossover to Tanzania, mageuzi mapya usafirishaji da. Kumbuka ni siku chache tu kabla ya uchaguzi, siku 7 peke yake kabla ya uchaguzi mkuu kule Tanzania. Zitasalia siku 5 za kampeni, lakini kule Tanzania hata kwa gazeti la Mwananchi hiyo sio habari kubwa pale. Wanazungumzia masuala ya usafirishaji. Tofauti sana. Ingekuwa ni Kenya, ingekuwa tu ni siasa kote kwenye kurasa wa mbele. Anasema Samia ahidi mipango mipya, akigusia ujenzi wa miundombinu na kero ya msongamano, achimba mkwara, ataka watu wasitishwe. Samia Suluhu Hassan ndio mgombea urais peke yake ambaye ako kwenye ukurasa wa mbele. Na nukuliwa hapa akisema kuanzia Januari mwaka ujao mtaona mageuzi makubwa katika kutoa huduma mabasi ya mwendo kasi. Tayari ashaona atakuwa bado kazini mwaka ujao. Mradi hatua uliofikia tuna sifa kimataifa, utaleta mapinduzi kwenye usafiri Dar es Salaam. Ni BRT, mwendo kasi, basi za kusafirisha watu kwenye miji kama vile Dar es Salaam, wanaitwa DART. Kuna habari nyingine pale ambayo iligonga vichwa vya habari duniani, na ni alikuwa wakati mmoja rais wa Ufaransa Nicolas Sarkozy, ambaye sasa yuko gerezani, anaanza maisha jela miaka 5. Alikuwa wakati mmoja rais kule Ufaransa. Kule Tanzania wamepewa habari hii kipaumbele kwenye ukurasa wa mbele wa gazeti la Mwananchi. Sarkozy alivyoanza maisha jela, habari kamili kwenye ukurasa wa 6. Kwingineko, waliomuua muuguzi KCMC kunyongwa. Na habari nyingine hapa, kilipojificha kitanzi mikataba ya mikopo. Habari hii tutaiangalia kwenye gazeti la The Citizen, ambapo imepewa kipaumbele na kuchambuliwa kwa kina kwenye ukurasa wa mbele. Vyama vya kuna vichwa kuwapata mawakala. Ni wakati zikisalia siku 7 kabla ya uchaguzi mkuu wa rais, wa bunge na madiwani. Vyama vya siasa kule Tanzania, hasa vile vidogo, vinaumiza vichwa kuhakikisha vinapata mawakala wa kutosha kwa uchaguzi, wale wanaitwa agents. Gazeti la Mwananchi. On the front page of the Citizen, still in Tanzania, they make mention of that story about loans. Remember, it is only 7 days to election day. Why you should read that loan agreement carefully. That's what they're talking about. This is an advisory to borrowers. They say borrowers must read and fully understand their loan agreements before signing them, lest they find themselves trapped in costly contracts because they overlook key details such as interest rates, repayment schedules, and penalties. That's a very business-like story on the Citizen, which is typical of this paper. But yes, they still make mention of the political campaigns. Parties enter final week of preparations for elections. With exactly 7 days remaining until Tanzania has cast their ballots to elect the president, MPs and councillors, political parties are intensifying their preparations for training agents and deploying strategies to influence voters ahead of the October 29 elections. Campaigns will stop exactly 48 hours before election day, meaning there's only 5 days left for the campaigns. And of course, President Samia Suluhu Hassan, who's a CCM candidate, getting space on the front page kama kawaida. Wale wengine 17 hakuna mahali wamementioniwa kwa zile magazeti tumeangalia today. Samia vows to end enduring pain for Dar commuters, and she's talking about the BRT, DART. How mobile money is driving Tanzania's cashless aspirations is another story there on the front page of this paper. So those are the headlines locally and regionally. We'll be back to take a look at the local ones in depth. For now, let's take a look at the weather situation across most regions in Kenya. And we start off in the Lake Victoria region in Homa Bay. It's a bit warm this morning at 21 degrees. Feels even warmer at 24. We do expect some light rains in Homa Bay starting this morning. How much rainfall? 1.5 millimeters there. Promises to get as hot as 26 degrees, which is not bad for that region of the country. A bit of cloud cover expected later in the afternoon. In Kilifi, the coast region, it is even warmer than Homa Bay at 25 degrees Celsius currently. Feels like 27, which is probably the highest that people will experience in Homa Bay. It's a cloudy day. It promises to get as high as 31 degrees in Kilifi, quite hot even for that area. No rainfall expected at all. And this will continue for the rest of the week into the weekend. Let's go to the Mount Kenya region and we start in Meru. 16 degrees currently, feels a bit cooler at 15. It's a partly cloudy day. It will get as hot as 26 degrees Celsius, but we do expect some cooling after today because tomorrow the highs will be 23, a bit of rainfall expected even on Friday and into the weekend, highs of 23. But today, highest 26 degrees, very little precipitation, 0.2 millimeters. That's the Mount Kenya region. Let's drop further south to the Masai Mara areas around Narok. It is 18 degrees Celsius. Cloudy day, promises to rain around mid-afternoon between 3 and 4 p.m. But it's just light rain, not a lot of it, 4.1 millimeters. So for those who are on holiday, do expect that. Highs of 28 degrees, which is a bit warmer than normal. And this is expected to continue to the weekend. A bit of rainfall, a bit more rainfall expected next week. Ukambani, very hot. It is 19 degrees in Kibwezi, feels like 24. It is a cloudy day, but promises to get as high as 31 degrees in Kibwezi, and that will continue into the week. A bit of more rainfall expected next week, but today in Kibwezi, no rainfall expected at all. What about Isiolo? They say Isiolo is actually the most central part of Kenya. Iko right in the middle. Ukiangalia map ya Kenya. 22 degrees this morning. It is a warm day, very warm. A bit of cloud cover, 33 degrees in Isiolo today. No rainfall expected there. I think we are taking a look at Homa Bay, which is warm, but let's take a look at Nairobi now. And Nairobi has been a bit warm. Yesterday it was hitting about 27 degrees Celsius. I don't know if that is expected to change, but yes, wale wamekuwa wakizunguka maeneo mengi Nairobi, they've been experiencing quite some hot weather. It is 16 degrees Celsius in Nairobi. As we speak, it's a cloudy day. Up until midday, promises to get as high as 25 degrees, which is a bit fairer than what we witnessed the past few days. Promises to get even cooler as we get into the weekend, but next week it will get back to warmer temperatures. 2.0 millimeters of rainfall expected in Nairobi today. Exactly 11 minutes past 6. What is the traffic situation in the city as people get back to work? Those who had gone to mourn and to just be part of that period of national mourning should be getting back to work. Most major roads are green into the CBD, but of course the usual trouble spots kama kawaida, pale Feather Tasia as you go towards Donholm, it's building, traffic building up right next to the railway station, and these are matatus carrying people right on the road. Your barabara, unfortunately, doesn't have a bus station, or a bus stop for that matter. Jogoo Road kama kawaida pale Makadara, just before you get to that Likoni Road roundabout, it's getting busy, but from there it is smooth all the way into the CBD. Even areas around Mudhurwa, it's looking good. Ata pale Haile Selassie Avenue around Railways bus station, not so bad this morning. Kama kawaida pale Pangani Interchange, it's building up slowly. So those coming from Thika Road and Kiambu Road do expect that, but on Thika Road all the way from Ruiru, it's looking good and green all the way into that section of the Pangani interchange. Other major roads into town, I can see a problem at Museum Hill roundabout. No, the interchange there. Something appears to be happening there, and this should be the road below the expressway, the main highway. But this one is heading out of town at the National Museum interchange there. A stretch of red here between that place and the Chiromo junction. The junction leading to Chiromo campus. So I think most people going towards areas like Lilesho, there's a bit of traffic there. I don't know what exactly is happening. But all the other major tributaries into town, the one from the airport is looking good. So there's a bit of problem there. This one is unusual. This is a bit unusual here around the Museum of Kenya. If you can avoid that, please do. Other major roads are looking green this morning. All right. Let's get the quote of the day before we come back and take a look at the local dailies.
The biggest adventure you can take is to live the life of your dreams.
All Alright, wapelekana mbio sana. Ni nani hawa? Ngoja turejee kuangalia kwa kina. Migawanyiko ODM ndio habari kuu kwenye ukurasa wa mbele wa Taifa Leo, na wana nyuso za wale ambao sasa kila mmoja anatafuta nafasi yake kwenye chama hichi ambacho kiliongozwa na Raila Odinga. Anasema mgawanyiko wa kisiasa ndani ya chama cha Orange Democratic Movement au ukipenda ODM umeibua mjadala mkubwa kuhusu hatima ya chama hicho kufuatia kifo cha kiongozi wake Raila Odinga aliyezikwa Jumapili iliyopita. Habari kamili kwenye ukurasa wa pili. Wanasema ODM ambacho kimekuwa dhabiti kwa miaka mingi cha kumbwa msukosuko kufuatia kifo cha Raila Odinga. Chama hichi kimekuwa kwa miaka 20, lakini sasa bila kiongozi wake Raila Odinga, kila mtu anaongea kivyake, kila mtu anajitafutia nafasi pale. Oburu Odinga ambaye sasa ni kinara wa chama ako pale, pia anasema aliongea na Raila Odinga. Gladys Wanga pia ambaye ni mwenyekiti wa chama hicho. Abdul Swamad Sharif Nasir ambaye ni naibu wa mwenyekiti. Wengine pia wako pale kama Junet Mohamed, Anyang' Nyong'o, Edwin Sifuna, Babu Owino, Simba Arati. Kila mtu anazungumza, kila mtu anasema mimi niliongea na baba akaniambia hivi na hivi ndio tunaenda. Wako hapa kwenye ukurasa wa mbele. Sasa chama ambacho kilikuwa kinasikiza mtu mmoja sasa kinasikiza hawa wote. Migawanyiko ODM wapelekana mbio. Ukiangalia kwenye mitandao ya kijamii, kila mtu anasema yule jamaa atoke, wengine wanaitwa majina ambayo si yao. Hao wenyewe ndani kwa ndani utangoja tuone. Kando na masuala ya siasa ya ODM, kuna vidokezo zaidi. Pigo kaunti ikiagizwa kurejesha fedha, ni kaunti ya Kiambu pale. Kaunti ya Kiambu yaamrishwa kurudisha pesa ilizokusanya kwenye stage tangu mwaka 2018. Habari nyingine, majonzi, mwili wa ripota ukisafirishwa. Ni mwili wa mwandishi habari Kimani Mbugua wasafirishwa kutoka mjini Mombasa, safirishwa kwa ndege. Aliaga dunia wiki jana. Nafikiri mipango ya mazishi yazidi kuendelea. Kuna habari hapa ya kimataifa. Sarkozy atupwa jela miaka 5. Huyu ni aliyekuwa rais wa Ufaransa, apewa kifungo cha miaka 5 kwa kupokea mamilioni kutoka Libya. Inasemekana alipokea fedha za kampeni yake ya urais wakati mmoja, na sasa itabidi akae jela miaka 5. Ingekuwa tunafanya hivi hapa Kenya, sidhani tungekuwa na wanasiasa sahi. Pale juu, afisi ya naibu rais yatumia nusu ya bajeti katika mwaka 2025-26. Ikiwa itadumisha kasi hii ya matumizi ya fedha ikitimu Machi mwaka ujao, afisi hiyo itakuwa imemaliza mgao wake. Ile fedha zote ambazo zimepewa ofisi ya naibu wa rais tayari nusu, na hatujafika nusu wa mwaka huu. Masuala ya spoti, Chelsea FC wenyeji wa Ajax leo. Chelsea watakuwa ugani Stamford Bridge kukaribisha Ajax Amsterdam, na wanasema ni masuala ya UEFA Champions League. Jana Arsenal wametandika jamaa wengine wanaitwa Atletico Madrid mabao 4-0. Gazeti la Taifa Leo tukiendelea, ni habari ile ya siasa za ODM ambayo imepewa kipaumbele kwenye ukurasa wa mbele wa The Star. An uphill task, Oburu fights to steady ODM. And I mentioned this earlier. You realize now that the face of Oburu Odinga becoming even more prominent on our front pages. He had never occupied the front pages, to be honest. Now, as the interim party leader of ODM, you see he's given prominence on the front page of Taifa Leo. It is his image that is there on the front page of The Star today. An uphill task, Oburu fights to steady ODM. The party is grappling with emerging crises in post-Raila era and the different images of other ODM luminaries who everyone is speaking at cross purposes. Edwin Sifuna, the Secretary General, Deputy Party Leader Abdul Swamad Sharif Nasir, and even Opiyo Wandayi, who's a CS in charge of energy. Kila mtu hapo anasema waliongea na baba aliwacha instructions. Lakini hizi instructions zilikuwa kila mtu anasema instructions zake tofauti. How will Oburu Odinga ensure that ODM remains steady? Why counties could be losing more than 25 billion shillings in revenue every year. That's another story, and they're quoting the control of budget. The state needs court order to shut rogue websites in new cybercrime law. This is another big discussion. It is part of the 8 bills that, which are now acts that President William Ruto assented to on October 15th, the same day that Raila Odinga died. And it is what features as a front page story on some of the dailies, and we'll get to that. It is one of the big discussions. Some are saying, okay, the president used the fact that there was stories about national mourning, the death of the former prime minister, to sneaking this. But then again, surely, these bills, before they are signed and assented to into law, they are subject to a very long legislative process in Parliament, which involves both the National Assembly and the Senate. By the time it gets to the President, he's just signing into law, something that more than 349 members of Parliament have passed. Why is so much criticism against the President? But anyway, that's just me. We'll get to that. Wellington Muzengeza pale juu anaongea kuhusu Raila Odinga, firebrand statesman, Africa must never forget. And you'll realize that there's still a lot of audios, a lot of opinion and commentary still about the life and times of the former prime minister. This will continue for a while, even after finishing the period of national mourning. Wanjiru murder is another big story. Extradition process for Briton's suspect underway, the High Court has been told. That's the Star. Fresh, independent, different. You can get yourself a copy of this paper for only 60 shillings in Kenya, 1,000 shillings in Tanzania, and 2,000 shillings Ugandan money. The Star. Same story on the front page of the People Daily. Why Ruto needs ODM to win 2027 general election. And a very interesting photo, once again, of who? The interim party leader of ODM, Oburu Odinga, seated. And now it's the president, William Ruto, who's consulting him while bending down to actually consult him. That's how important they seem to suggest that ODM is. When you see the president, this should be vice versa, that everyone else consults the president and they actually kneel down or even bend to ask for advice. But now it would appear it is President William Ruto. And this is a picture that speaks 1,000 words. President William Ruto is the one who needs ODM. Why Ruto needs ODM to win 2027 general election matters re-election of President William Ruto given prominence. Will Raila's political orphans chart their own path is another story on page 5, and this is definitely the big conversation. What happens next? To all these people who say they talked to Baba, to all these people who said Baba said this, to all these people who have hung on Raila Odinga's coattails for the longest for their own political survival, in his absence, what happens to them? That story on page 5 of the People Daily. Another person who's featured here, why Kindiki is living on borrowed time as Kenya's DP. That story is on page 6 of this paper, and it says that probably the president will now be forced to pick a running mate for his re-election from ODM, or Nyanza region for that matter. So Professor Kithure Kindiki is counting down 21 months. Will he survive? Borrowed time. That's the People Daily. Same story on the Daily Nation, at least this one mentions the late Raila Odinga. What did Raila say? Because everyone has his own account of what the former Prime Minister, the late Raila Odinga, said. So Orange Party split by wrangles on its 20th anniversary. Factional wars within the ODM party have intensified, with rivals clashing on their political direction decreed by party leader Raila Odinga, who died last Wednesday. The dispute is on the outfit's commitment to the broad-based government and subsequent support for President Ruto's re-election. Twin issues over which each side is conveniently interpreting Raila's word to its advantage. But what was his wish? A story on page 4 and 5. The chairperson of this party, Gladys Wanga, says, the last instruction he left us with, and I remember him speaking at the burial of Dr. Phoebe Asio, he said he made a clear decision to work with Ruto. That is the last standing instruction Baba gave us. But Edwin Sifuna says, Raila said as a party, we must prepare ourselves for the 2027 election. Those spreading other narratives here, Raila has previously asked them, who has told you? We will follow the last standing instruction. So which is the last standing instruction? What did Raila say? Minority Leader Junet Mohammed, he said, Raila told us to remain in the broad-based government. It is on record. Treasury CS says Raila showed us before he died that he wanted us to be in government. Orengo says, I am one of the people who believe we must keep ODM. President Ruto, let us not kill parties. Kisii Governor Simba Arati says, I want to assure ODM members the party is going nowhere. We've just started the struggle. So what exactly did Raila say? That's the question. All these people seem to suggest that they are the ones who interpret correctly what Raila Odinga said as his last instruction to the party before his death last Wednesday. That story is on page 4 and 5 of the Daily Nation. Let's take a look at the inside pages to see if at all there's any other interesting stories. Details of tough balancing act in Raila's funeral plans revealed. We're still taking a look at the last 1 week leading up to the final interment of the former Prime Minister on Sunday in Siaya. And why Kondele residents won't let go. Locals believe that Kondele was Raila's political bedroom. They popularly refer to it as barracks. To be or not to be with Ruto, ODM chiefs differ on fallen leaders' wishes. How police caught suspect in KCSE exam fraud rackets. Even as KCSE begins, cases and reports of cheating or plans to cheat have emerged, and someone, at least one person, has already been arrested, is expected to be arraigned in court. The other story, Maraga takes on Ruto over new draconian illegal laws, and this is a story we'll see on the front page of another paper. All right, on the back page of this paper, Simiu back from self-exile, vows to punish opponents. This is a national cross-country championships. That's the Daily Nation. We move on to the Standard, and this one takes a totally different route altogether. No mention of ODM, no mention of politics on the front page. Out with freedoms. And they call it midnight laws. So 4 hours after Raila Odinga's death, President Ruto signed 8 controversial bills into law. Measures that critics say betray the very freedoms Raila spent his life defending. Among them is a new Cybercrimes Act, which, while tightening safeguards against online fraud and harassment, hides vague clauses that could muzzle free speech and silence dissent. Former Chief Justice David Maraga has condemned the move as a mockery of Raila's legacy and announced plans to challenge the laws in court. A bit of reference to the former Prime Minister Raila Odinga and what he may or may not have stood for in as far as some of these bills that were sent to are concerned. On the cyber crimes, which is the main focus on this paper, the implications, they say, 1, it criminalizes publishing false digital information, and there's a threat of up to 3 years imprisonment or fines of up to 5 million shillings. There's a vague definition of cyber harassment, which could target activists and opposition figures. State agencies can now block websites or online content without court approval, which will enable shutdowns of critical media and voices of dissent. According to this paper, that act allows police to demand user data from service providers, raising concerns over political spying. Its vague wording and possible retroactive enforcement by the law creates fear, leading to censorship and self-censorship online. Now this, according to this paper, should be the greatest concern. Already, people have gone to court. You've heard the former Chief Justice, David Maraga, talk about the same, and they say these matters will now be determined in court. Cybercrimes Act, as well as the other 8 bills that were signed by the President on Wednesday the 15th, the same day that we received the news of Raila Odinga's death. So on the inside pages, matters exams also given prominence. Exams, desperate students and parents fall for online scammers. So conmen on popular social media platforms promise to sell leaked NEC exams. Both KJSEA, I don't even understand why KJSEA and KEPSEA, there could be even attempts to cheat in those exams. But for KCSE, at least one person has been arrested so far. Yes, cybercrimes law change violate constitution, petitioners argue, and a petition has been filed in the High Court challenging the Computer Misuse and Cybercrimes Amendment Act, which was signed into law by President William Ruto last Wednesday. But I'm asking you, where were you when these bills, before they were signed into law, were being processed in Parliament? Very elaborate legislative processes, including first reading, second reading, debate, public participation, voting in both the National Assembly and the Senate. Now, once they've been taken and approved and now signed into law, all hell breaks loose. We'll be looking at that. We will have an advocate of the High Court here to tell us more about the legality of this, plus 2 members of the National Assembly to discuss that matter. Finally, matters business. Regulator removes hurdle for crypto insurance cover. That's the biggest story on the front page of the Business Daily. IRA unveils draft rules for virtual assets cover and insurance concerned about crypto hacks, theft and fraud. Kenyans investing or trading in cryptocurrencies such as Bitcoin may soon be able to buy insurance cover for hacking losses and employee theft. Interesting. Other stories, property agents face daily fines for hiding home buyers. So property agencies face daily fines of about 10,000 shillings daily for failing to register with the anti-money laundering watchdog. The Financial Reporting Center, FRC, in a crackdown on corrupt business people and other criminals hiding wealth in real estate, has said. On the ticker, higher taxes hold key to Kenya's credit ratings upgrade. Elsewhere, consumers brace for fresh charge on fuel and electricity. And finally, equity staff training cost surges to 846 million Kenya shillings. That's a Business Daily. Matters business given prominence there. All right. So those are the dailies. We'll be looking at them with this panel. James Gakuya, MP Embakasi North, Sabina Shege, who's a nominated MP, and Harrison Kenyanjui, advocate of the High Court. Do stand by for that conversation. In a few minutes' time, another even more interesting conversation coming up at 8 a.m. We'll be having Pastor Dorcas Rigathi in studio, redefining the modern girl child. This conversation, Anno Dida talking to Pastor Dorcas Rigathi. Let's take a look at what the cartoonists are talking about today, just to give us an indication of what the conversations are. Yes, it is the same story, which direction for ODM? And they have a caricature of now the interim party leader, Odinga, holding a compass. And he's trying to understand, okay, what exactly did Raila Odinga say? And that's a question on most of the papers. What did Raila say? What were the last instructions on what his party, 20-year-old ODM party, should do? All the leaders there are waiting for direction. Which direction, they ask? That's a cartoon on the Star. The cartoon on the People Daily, still making reference to the death of the former Prime Minister, Raila Odinga. And they have a tombstone here, rest in peace, Raila Odinga. But in As People, portrayed here as people in a desert, and they say they're still believing that Moses, Raila Odinga, how can we reach Canaan? Yes. Israelites want to cross over to Canaan. But Moses told them, it is Joshua who's going to take you there, not I. So don't ask Moses. The cartoon on the Daily Nation, a bit of focus on the Computer Misuse Act that has brought quite some debate as well. It was assented into law by the president last week on Wednesday. Features on most of the front pages as well. And what are the implications? That's what the cartoonist on the Daily Nation has focused on today. Finally, the one on the Standard, a focus on the national exams. KCSE currently underway across the country, close to 1 million candidates sitting for this paper. Next week, we do have the other papers, KJSER for the junior secondary school and KEPSER for grade 6, those transitioning to grade 7. So we have a student there sitting for the exam. Alafu anauliza the swali, the question he's actually, or she's actually looking at is, which one of the following is the correct nickname for former Prime Minister Raila Amolo Odinga? Is it A, Madividi, B, Watermelon, C, Wamashati, D, Aguambo, C, or E, One Time, F, Githinji, or G, Obako? This is an interesting cartoon today. So which one of the following is the correct nickname for former Prime Minister Raila Odinga? It would appear even when you talk about exams or anything, there's still reference to the former Prime Minister. All the best to the candidates sitting exams across the country. So these are some of the big conversations this morning. Do interact with us through our social media pages, TV47 Kenya on YouTube, Instagram, as well as Facebook. It is TV47 Digital on X. My handle on X is at Fred Indimuli. Remember to use the hashtag Morning Cafe TV47. See you after the break.
Our world is changing every day, and so should we, for the better. Each week, we tackle the big why, the question that should be on everyone's minds. Why isn't this fixed yet? Deforestation, global warming, and the adverse effects of climate change. The future isn't just something that we inherit, it's something that we create. Join us on The Green Fix as we tell the stories of those who refuse to give up. When it comes to fixing the planet, there is no time to waste. Join me, Shiksha Arora, on Thursdays at 9 p.m. on The Green Fix as we look into the big why, you and I.
For comprehensive information and education on your health, Body Garage is here.
Don't allow anyone to pluck out your good tooth, as long as it is strong and stable.
Cancer doesn't start today and you get the symptoms tomorrow. By the time you pick it or the time it is manifesting in you, probably will be there about 5 to 10 years.
The eye is the window to the rest of the body.
Don't forget to stay hydrated.
And of course, you at home do take your water.
So the ultimate test is actually you check your urine. Your urine should be clear.
Clear like the water?
Yes. Should be able to see the other side of the urine. If your urine is colored or has changed color, you cannot see the other side, then you have not taken enough water.
Don't forget regular health checkups. Early detection saves lives.
I want the message be, we can prevent cervical cancer. We prevent cervical cancer in several ways. You have young girls and even somebody who's above that age, you can pay at least every 3 years. Somebody should have a pap smear done.
If you are 40, 45, 50 going upwards, once a year, please go see a doctor. Yeah, it's just for normal routine maintenance.
Hey there, friends. Welcome to Kids on the Block, where fun and imagination come alive. We dive into magical world filled with exciting adventures and awesome friends.
What position were you in?
I was number 2.
What position were you?
Number 1.
He decided to cross the bridge by his house and look for food on the other side.
We're going to do half cup of chocolate chips, and the other one, we're going to do half cup of the blueberries.
So, grab your imagination hats and get ready to explore with us. Join us every Saturday at 9 a.m. for new friends, amazing stories, and tons of laughter.
Jiunge nasi tunapoangazia safari za viongozi bora. Kutoka kwa ushindi mkubwa hadi masomo magumu.
Wakati wetu kwamba wasichana si wa kusoma, ni wa kuolewa, ng'ombe ipatikane, wazazi wakuwe watajiri.
Tunashughulikia yote.
I wish I were a better investor.
My parents.
For decades, Raila Amolo Odinga was not just a political leader, he was a maker of leaders. From Migori, where he spotted a youthful Junet Mohammed and made him a mayor at just 24 years, to the coast, where Hassan Joho rose from a Kisauni youth to MP, governor and now cabinet secretary, thanks to Raila's mentorship. And in Kilifi, Amason Kingi's rise from backbench MP to governor also traced its roots to Raila Odinga's trust and political guidance. But today, ODM's strength without Raila is in question, and with it, the future of those who depended on his political protection. Among the most exposed are ODM Secretary General Edwin Sifuna, Mombasa Governor Abdul Samad Nasir, Homa Bay Governor Gladys Wanga, and Suna East MP Junet Mohammed. Others include former party chair John Mbadi, Siaya Governor James Orengo, Migori's Ochilo Wayako, and even Nairobi Governor Johnson Sakaja, whose impeachment troubles were once quietly resolved through Raila's intervention. On Tuesday, Governor Johnson Sakaja visited the home of Mama Ida Odinga, accompanied by his Siaya counterpart James Orengo. The visit sending a signal of not just a visit to mourn Baba, but probably a political statement.
ODM is a parasite that was actually getting its relevance and life from Raila Odinga. And as is with all parasites, once the host dies, the parasite dies. The Swahili have a saying that ukizoea uji wa mgonjwa, akipona unakufa. Akikufa unakufa.
Also finding herself politically exposed is Nairobi woman representative Esther Passaris, whose vocal loyalty to Raila barely translated into strong grassroots structures of her own. With Raila gone, she too risked losing her political footing within a party now searching for identity. William Ruto boldly declared that ODM would either form the next government or be part of it, a statement that has fueled speculation about a possible UDA-ODM merger or cooperation.
But now that Raila is no longer there, ODM that we knew doesn't exist. So there's no future for ODM, whatever way you look at it. Kanu is 65 years old today, but it's less than a CBO. No one talks about it. There was a party called PNU for Kibaki. It's not there. There was DP for Kibaki. No one talks about it. There was Jubilee at some point. It looked like a behemoth. It's not there.
Ruto's remarks have rattled ODM's rank and file, with a section of Kenya Kwanza leaders, including Senator Samson Cherargei, openly calling for Edwin Sifuna's ouster, accusing him of clinging to a political relic that may soon align with government. Political analyst Arnold Maliba interprets President William Ruto's remarks during Raila's funeral, where he said John Mbadi is equal to the task, as a strong signal of trust.
Our interest rates have come down, and Kenya is now the 6th largest economy in the world, in Africa. This man, John Mbadi, anatosha ama atoshi?
Si hata huyu Mbadi anatosha. That question has significance. That question was not just a quip. That question was anchored in a little bit of research.
Maliba suggests that Ruto could even pick Mbadi as his running mate in the 2027 general election, signaling a possible new political alignment. He warns that Raila's political orphans will face serious consequences in his absence, as the dynamics of survival and loyalty shifts dramatically.
And as is, it's just a matter of time before Mbadi is actually put forward as the substantive party leader of ODM and William Ruto's running mate. But over and above, William Ruto does not have a party today. UDA is not a political party you can go to an election with. Kenyans hate that particular party with passion.
Analysts say such statements only deepen confusion among ODM supporters, many of whom are unsure whether the party still stands in the opposition or is slowly drifting towards government co-option.
No. He does. President Ruto does not need to fold UDA. He needs to form a coalition. Remember, UDA was a new party, and Mount Kenya voted for UDA en masse. So President Ruto has the capacity to, is the only politician, other than BAMBA, the late, who's been able to go to another region and become its kingpin. He went to Mount Kenya, became its kingpin. He's coming to Nyanza. Does he have the capacity to be the Nyanza kingpin? Yes, he does.
Without Raila's firm hand to steady the ship, ODM risks losing its ideological soul and loyal base, especially in Nyanza, the coast and western regions.
And again, without Raila Odinga, there is no likelihood that ODM will have influence beyond Luo Nyanza. If it has to have influence beyond Luo Nyanza, it will have to have a very strong personality to be in charge. And that will depend on how the President William Ruto, is going to deal with the ODM.
The impact on ODM bases will include weak grassroots direction, risk of defections, internal leadership wrangles, and identity crisis post-Raila. ODM now faces a defining test whether it can survive beyond Raila's charisma. Will it be swallowed by political convenience, For the so-called ODM orphans, the loss of their political father could mark either a painful ending or the beginning of reinvention. Mike Kagwango, TV 47, Nairobi.
It is definitely the biggest question. Will ODM survive? What next for ODM? It features on all the front pages today, or at least most of the front pages of the dailies today. The People Daily, why Ruto needs ODM to win 2027 election. Taifa Leo wapelekana mbio, na hawa ni kuna mgawanyiko wa kisiasa ndani ya chama cha Orange Democratic Movement. What did Raila say? That's the front page of the Daily Nation. An uphill task, Oburu fights to steady ODM. That's the front page of the Star. And even in the cartoons, they're all talking about which direction for ODM. This morning we're privileged to have with us James Gakuya, MP Embakasi North. Karibu sana Bwana Gakuya.
Thank you.
And Harrison Kinyanjui of the High Court. Wakili, good morning.
Good morning.
Now, many people have predicted, following the death of the former Prime Minister, many people predicted the death of the party, the last few days of the party. And the split and the cracks are already playing out.
Excuse me.
Excuse me. Pardon me.
Our world is changing every day, and so should we, for the better. Each week, we tackle the big why, the question that should be on everyone's mind. Why isn't this fixed yet? Deforestation, global warming, and the adverse effects of climate change. The future isn't just something that we inherit, it's something that we create. Join us on The Green Fix as we tell the stories of those who refuse to give up. When it comes to fixing the planet, there is no time to waste. Join me, Shiksha Arora, on Thursdays at 9 p.m. on The Green Fix as we look into the big why, you and I.
For comprehensive information and education on your health, Body Garage is here.
Don't allow anyone to pluck out your good tooth, as long as it is strong and stable.
Cancer doesn't start today and you get the symptoms tomorrow. By the time you pick it or the time it is manifesting in you, probably will be there about 5 to 10 years.
The eye is the window to the rest of the body.
Don't forget to stay hydrated.
And of course, you at home do take your water.
So the ultimate test is actually you check your urine. Your urine should be clear.
Clear like the water.
Yes. Should be able to see the other side of the urine. If your urine is colored or has changed color, you cannot see the other side, then you have not taken enough water.
Don't forget.
We do apologize for that technical hitch, but now we're back and ready to roll. And once again, I'm in studio with James Gakuya, MP Embakasi North, Wakili Harrison Kinyanjui, and Sabina Chege, nominated MP, also joins us. Once again, the big story this morning is about what happens to ODM as a party, and I was just looking at most of the papers. The Star today talking about an uphill task for the interim party leader, Odinga, who's fighting to steady the ship, with everyone claiming that they spoke to BAMBA and that he left specific instructions for each one of them. So what did Raila say exactly? And that is a big headline on the front page of the Daily Nation. What did Raila say? And the Daily Nation has broken down at six different versions from 6 different prominent leaders of the ODM party, including the SG, the chairperson, deputy party leader, and some other big leaders, including CSs, each one saying that they are the ones bearing the very last instructions for the party from Raila Odinga. So what did Raila say? Wapelekana mbio ni habari kuu kwenye ukurasa wa mbele wa Taifa Leo pia, na on the People Daily, why Ruto needs ODM to win 2027 general election. And so the question now is, because many people predicted the end of ODM party following the passing on of the former Prime Minister, but the kind of prominence we're seeing the party receiving on the front pages of all our dailies, and the indication that even the president currently is really interested in the survival of ODM party, that's the question I'm asking Wakili. Could we be off the mark on this one? That many may have predicted the death of the party with the passing on of the former Prime Minister, but it would appear the focus is all on ODM.
Thank you very much. In my humble view, I think it's a bit premature now to speak of a fractured, a broken ODM. I think what may happen in the near future is, because of the lack of the cohesive force in the name, in the person of Raila Odinga, and how he was able to maneuver in government and to merge the factions that seemingly operate within ODM. The likes of Sifuna, who are resurgent, they resonate with the youth, the Gen Zs, and probably want a vibrant ODM. And they who, like the brother of the deceased, Odinga, who want to anchor ODM in government, entrench whatever ODM stands for with the UDA political party. And so those two factions probably have another third faction, which may be leaning on neither side. So there is a possibility of the 3 factions, as we go on, that rift widening. And the sad bit is that ODM as a political party provided a counterweight against the excesses of government at some point, I should say. Because from some point then, what they call the broad-based government, then they started working together. You could no longer see any checking of the government by ODM, and there was more of a voice of support of the government than checking the government. So at this stage, the question that probably would linger in the minds of many people is, what did the president have in mind when he was, as it were, seemingly propping up Honorable Mbadi, in ODM? And my humble view is that he may be having some political plans for him. And being in Treasury, then of course he occupies very significant portfolio. But my question is, would Mbadi have the grassroots support? Beyond the grassroots support, would he have the base support within the larger ODM political party? I see with time the waning of support in, for instance, Kisii, because the emergence of someone like Maraga, however, the former CJ, however minute or whatever the impact he may have, the influence of ODM, its grip on the Kisii people, if I should say that with tremendous respect to them, will diminish with time. And so when you see Honorable Arati saying that, ODM, we are still in Mapambano, and he goes on to sing the Mapambano song. I don't want to call it a rallying cry anymore within ODM. Because ODM being in government, there is no longer any quote-unquote mapambano here. We're not talking about any belligerence. And so you find that probably is a personal fight for relevance within the political spectrum for the governor of Kisii. And as we go along, probably time will tell if Honorable Matiang'i then will wield much more influence within that region. But in the larger Kenyan context, will ODM still wield the same power as it has always done? And I see that given now that there is opportunity for the leader of UDA, the president, then to use ODM as an extension of UDA within his larger political schemes of 2027 and going beyond, and also within containing dissent that may be rising probably by DCP and other political parties. He may want to, like some people say, have that direct but subtle control over ODM.
And it's interesting that you even mentioned UDA because no one appears to be talking about UDA. Bwana Gakuya, you're still practically a member of UDA party, but even the president, while mentioning ODM over 20 times probably in his speeches, he rarely mentions UDA anywhere. And he would appear more interested in the survival of the ODM party than his own UDA party. Do you feel that probably ODM will still be the most consequential political party in the next election, and that would mark 20 years since, I think, since 2007, those are how many elections, for the fifth election running, that ODM will be the most consequential party?
Thank you, Edimboli. Allow me to salute viewers wherever they are watching this morning show from. And coming to that element of the future of ODM politically. Well, let me say the departure of the de facto leader, the former Prime Minister, will bring a lot of, it will bring some issues, and there is a possibility of a division which might split the party in future. We have this history because we know the foundation of found itself during the Raila Odinga's father, Jaramogi Odinga, Matibas and the likes, when the Ford splitted to have Ford Kenya and Ford Asili. And there is a likelihood of the same route this time round, taking into concern that Raila was the one holding this team together to the end. And coming to the serious matter, where this kind of spirit might arise, is where one, the Secretary General, One Sifuna, is the holder of the instruments of the party and the custodian of the instrument. And therefore, if he clings completely and fails to hand over the instrument, there can be he can force a division in that particular party. One may think that, in fact, it's very easy to kick him out. But remember, he's the custodian of the party's instrument. Number two is that even before the death of Raila Odinga, those clerks has emerged, and there was a team calling itself Kenya Monja, which majority team was from that particular fraternity of ODM. And the same clerks seems not to end. And I would say that there was a haste, and a serious haste on naming the party leader, the interim party leader, even before the burial of the then party leader. That puts a questionable interest of a particular group, which during his arrival at the airport is when that particular decision was made on a hotel allowed there. So that was a serious haste, and I don't think that there was anything that was clicking to fail to have at least a wait until the send-off of the former party leader. In a matter to do with the future of the party, I would say the sentiments made in that particular burial by the head of state clearly shows that William relies his re-election on an audio platform. And that the reason is one, is that the UDA party, as per se, who is the UDA party? Remember, Mount Kenya region seems to have the serious cut to supporters of the UDA in the last election. And in their exit, then William must require such a replacement. And I don't think that anywhere else he can garner that replacement. He can only rely on that particular base of ODM. How should he do? As a president, he made sure that particular value, he will cement the relationship between him and the ODM fraternity. And that's why
and it's a personal
he
relationship
gave a lot of history
yes.
on his relationship with Raila even during when ODM was founded. And he called himself a founder member of ODM. And he was very categorical in his statement that he's not going to allow anybody to split the party. And therefore, he was so categorically that he has a lot of interest in the ODM other than the split in the ODM, in the UDA. He does not care where the UDA will end up. But he was so careful on the future of ODM. And that's the reason why the coming in of Oburu is here to cement the partnership and the partnership beyond. Because you know, there is a team which is totally even against the current. But in fact, according to the statement of Raila before his death, was that there is no agreement on party after 2027. And therefore, at one particular meeting he said, who said that in fact the ODM is not going to field a presidential candidate come 2027. So that is where then the leadership are now seem to have a different interpretation on what Raila wanted to the ODM to be. There are those who are pro that we should now move to be with the government even after the 2027, and that's how it's going to work. Okay. And today as we speak, Odinga family is totally at the side of Ruto. And that's, nobody's going to change that. Okay. But even though that is going to be, remember, there are those who distance themselves from that arrangement. And to keep them in the party with that kind of division is not going to be easy, since we are heading to an election in 2027. And therefore, what will happen is either a split of the party. If not the split of the party, then people will depart from the party to other parties.
And dissent is common in political parties, Madam Sabina Chege. Dissent is common in the political parties. It does not always indicate the end of the party. ODM would appear that its best bet is sticking with William Ruto because from our history, any presidential candidate or any party that has enjoyed the support of a sitting head of state has survived even dissent from within. The Jubilee Party is one of those parties. And is it therefore very clear that now that President William Ruto appears more concerned about the survival of ODM than UDA, that then again, that would mean that this party will survive and become more consequential in 2027?
Thank you very much, and very good morning to all. I just want to say that I want to say that ODM party is one of the biggest party and maybe longest surviving party in Kenya, apart from KANU, and a party currently that has structures all the way to the grassroots. That one, give it to them. And even as I still give my condolences to the Odinga's family, we saw people from different regions, all of them going to Bondo for the funeral, and from the reception that when the body of the former Prime Minister was brought to the Nyayo Stadium, Kasarani Nyayo Stadium, and then to Bondo. So this is a party that might not only, though the leadership has basically been from the Odinga's family, they're also structures and grassroots. And I had a chance to work with ODM when we were in Azimio. Mm-hmm. And that is the only party that when we went to the regions, we found even a chairman of the party at the grassroots. So at the ward level, there's a chairman. And so the structures are well spelled out. And so even though the top may be a bit shaken, and people may have different opinions, we have stronger grassroots. Mm. And so it might not be easy to say that ODM can really go down. There can be a bit of splitting, a bit of shaking a bit. And as we saw it at the funeral, I would not have expected the president to mention UDA anywhere, because anyway, this was a former, this was a party leader of ODM party that has, we were bidding farewell. And secondly, even as, the people who were addressing, who are called to address, you saw the structures of the party. That is why somebody like GOtv did not address the mourners as part of the leadership of the party, because he was not part of the leadership, but he was given a chance to, as a leader in the National Assembly. So it was clear when they called Simba Arati, when they called the governor of Mombasa, and so there were clear structures, and that is why Wanga, as the chair, is the one who conducted that section. And apart from maybe Sifuna, who came in and said, let's not say what Baba didn't say. And even all this, even when we are writing about what did Baba say, the bigger question is when and where. Remember, we saw very many people saying, I met with Baba in Serena. And so Sifuna came and said, you know, it's about the meeting that we had. And everybody heard what Baba said. And even for Baba, if he had mentioned that ODM will have or field the presidential candidate 2027, so who was that person? Was it himself? Or did he see himself joining with the President William Ruto and them having a coalition? And so then I will interpret what was said, I think, by the president, and somebody else who said it was the governor of Mombasa who said we shall either form the government or we will be in the government. That tells you there must have been talks about coalitions. And what do I see?
The president himself who said
there was the president, and then there was also the governor of Mombasa. So the president repeated what was said by the governor of Mombasa because I was there. And so my prediction is 2027, ODM will still be there. ODM most likely will work with the government. There are few people who might not be comfortable with that. So some might decide to leave the party. So whether it's Kenya Moja, there was Kenya Kwanza before, these are political slogans that different groups form to suit the, I would say, a time or the agenda that they want to bring forward. Remember, in this Kenya Moja coalition, there are ODM members and some also members who are maybe from UDA party and different parties. And I also foresee maybe the likes of the Sifuna, the likes of Kinababu Owino, and many other, likes of maybe people like Ndindi Nyoro coming up with their own political parties. So it's not just about ODM.
Will UDA survive this affinity that the president appears to have with ODM?
Well,
liking, and he appears more interested in the survival of ODM than UDA?
That's, I would not say the president is more, is interested more in the survival of ODM, but because when he spoke,
relatively,
it was about ODM.
He talked about himself and ODM,
exactly.
not UDA.
There was no way he would have talked about UDA in a state funeral of a former ODM person. Number two, if you look at the arrangement that were being done before, even before the passing on of the former prime minister, so the issue of the founder members of ODM, they were supposed to have a meeting, and the bigger meeting, I think, that was supposed to be done. I'm still hoping that it's going to be done to celebrate ODM 20 years. And maybe they might change a little bit just to celebrate maybe the life of Baba and then the ODM in 20 years. Who are the founder members of ODM? We have the former president, Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta. We have William Samoei Ruto. And now we have, I think Kalonzo was also there. Kalonzo was also there, but I think he had declined going for the 20 years celebration. And so even him speaking as part of a founder member of ODM, he would say, it would be sad for him to see a party that they formed going down. Though this party also came in and became opposition, it's also a party that has also helped him as a president when they came in and formed the broad-based government. So I would say, yes, there is going to be shake-up, but it's not going to be easy for that party just to go. Yes. And because if you look at when we came into Parliament 2013, yes, we came with TNA. But by 2017, we had Jubilee. 2022, we had Jubilee. But have we ever had grassroots structures? No. And I think the same thing now with UDA. That is where the weakest point is with this, I would say, the newer political parties, where the leadership is only at the national level. Yes. There is purportedly a structure that even forms NDC, maybe the county level, but these are selected, picked people, where you find that in ODM, there's actually actual grassroots elections where they get their leaders.
But at the national level is still appointive. They still don't have elections.
But you see, at the national level, for ODM, unlike other parties, these are people who have been elected from the grassroots coming up to the national level. These are the smaller, not even smaller parties, I would say newer parties, like Jubilee even today, even UDA. they start from top, then going down. And so you find people who are much more elected by party leadership rather than the grassroots. And that's a mistake we did. And I would want to say maybe even with Jubilee or even with, with Jubilee 22, when we're doing the election for 2022. Because you can go and do a very big meeting in Murang'a town, but who are your foot soldiers?
Okay.
Who have you left to talk about your party? And I think that's the biggest challenge we have. And ODM, I see it standing.
ODM may stand. There's a lot of dissent, and probably ODM will still be consequential come 2027. But in the interim, we still have about 21 months to go to election day. Parliament is still in session, and we just want to see how now the leadership or the push and pull within ODM party may affect the legislative agenda or the conduct of members of parliament, individual members of National Assembly and the Senate. We've seen that Raila Odinga was a unifying factor of ODM party. A parliamentary group meeting for the party without the presence of the party leader was not as consequential. And it was easy to marshal legislators from that party to one direction, and that was basically in the past few months in support of all government policy. Do we expect that to change in the coming days? At least ODM may stay. There are those who say William Ruto, there are those who say not necessarily. Do you see a shift in how the broad-based arrangement will work in the houses of legislation, not at the executive level? Okay.
The shift in my view is in theory, just theoretical. Why? Because behind the legislative agenda, there is one powerful force in the executive. And this is one person who has his bills, and you saw eight bills actually that he signed into law. Before anybody can pinpoint a finger at him and say that, oh, you signed these at a time that when the nation was mourning. But wait a minute. Who passed the laws? They passed the laws. These honorable members are the ones who passed those laws. The president cannot sit and debate those laws. The president cannot go for the first reading, the second reading, and then have the bill, signed into law anyhow. It is the members of the National Assembly that have let down Kenyans. They are passing these laws every single day by default or by design. They fail to attend during those sessions when Kenyans expect them, and that's a primary duty of a National Assembly member, a member of the National Assembly, member of the Senate. And what do they do in absenting themselves, either consciously or unconsciously? They are shortchanging the Kenyan people. The representation of the Kenyan people at both houses of parliament is in furtherance of Article 1:1 of the Constitution, that power, the mandate of the people, the will of the people can be exercised through their representatives. Now, when they fail to challenge these bills that are emanating from the executive, what are they doing to the Kenyan people?
Don't you think, Wakili, that probably that was largely informed by the working arrangements of the broad-based government, that every government bill received automatic support from both sides, from ODM and, of course, UDA, those who support that bill, that even Raila Odinga himself did not necessarily have a push against some of these bills. And probably many people are just insisting here that he stood for something different. None of the MPs from ODM even spoke about this. They simply passed them.
So isn't that a betrayal of the trust that the Kenyan people have vested in these honorable members, or dishonorable, I don't know how to call them now? Because if you're like a blind, with tremendous respect, blind robot, you're automated, you will just pass the bill. No scrutiny, no examination of what the impact of that bill will be on the Kenyan people, or even at their own personal level, because you get amazed. Look at the cybercrime, the computer misuse and cybercrime amendment law, which they have passed, vesting such draconian powers in a committee. We're going back to the Stalin period, where even, being suspected of being anti-government. This is now morphing into some communist state. But why can they provide that scrutiny and get away, extricate themselves, remove themselves from these shackles of, this is the government policy, this is the broad or bread or whatever based government policy. I mean, you're out there to represent the Kenyan people. You're not there to articulate a broad-based approach to this. So you look at the oppression that the Kenyan people have to suffer because of that so-called arrangement. And whose allegiance do you hold supreme?
But to my question, do you see this changing now that Raila Odinga is not there? That this, what you call blind support for all government policy, even with the dissent and the disagreements following the exit of Raila Odinga, do you see that still sustaining in the National Assembly, that they will still have that blind support for the broad-based arrangement, given the kind of dissent we're seeing even within the ODM party?
I needed to say what I say as a background now to my saying, and I say that with tremendous respect to these honorable members of parliament, or whichever way they want to carry themselves, dishonorable or honorable in the eyes of the Kenyan people. You have to ask, do they have the mettle? Do they have the spine? Both at the individual level and in their, should I say in their own political parties. Do they have that strength to say that, well, so far as my constituents are concerned, so far as my people are concerned, this is their voice and I'm going to articulate it. Will they? Or will they be there receiving telephone calls like they did during the impeachment and some carrot and stick telling them, now, wait a minute. We know that you have these with the NIS reports that we receive. We know that you're involved with this shady and clandestine business and whatever it is, and therefore, it sabotages the whole legislative process. So going forward, I don't think much will change, because we heard these voices saying that, we will still be in the broad-based government. Our leader has passed on, but that has not extinguished our so-called commitment to the broad-based whatever, regardless of what their people say. What will they be doing in the end? They will still be passing laws like they did with the 2024 finance bill. What will they do? They will be digging their own grave, because Kenyans are tired. Kenyans are fed up. Kenyans want legislators who will articulate their issues and who will not be at the beck and call of the executive. A telephone call is made and they bow.
And allow me, Sabina Chege, because the issue has always been, and even ODM legislators have always made reference to one Raila Odinga, not even the party. And on even crucial documents and bills, they said, Baba akisoma, mimi sihitaji kusoma. Baba may not be available to read this. Do you think the party will still have influence on how individual members of ODM vote for crucial bills or policies going forward?
Going forward, remember, William Ruto seemed to have already taken the baton from the Baba who was the Bamba, and he's now want to start to be the Baba. And he has already seems to have taken the mantle from Baba to his own. And this way, leadership of the House, which involves GOtv and the others, most likely will rally behind the broad-based. And as much as the party has a party leader, Oburu might not be having a very strong, convincing language. But I am sure William Ruto is not going to sleep. He will be making PGs for ODM.
He'll be chairing parliamentary group meetings for ODM.
I am telling you, going forward, you see different things, and you won't even imagine. Let me tell you, the manner in which the statement that was released by the head of state clearly shows he's ready to spend anything, but make sure that ODM is not going anywhere, and he's there to command it. And therefore, even going forward, you listen to the sentiment made by Buddy himself. He was so vigorous and strong, saying we are going to remain in broad-based. The same sentiments were echoed by Joho. And therefore, the four ministers count them to be seriously deeply in the broad-based government. And so the chairperson of the party, who is Wanga, Oburu himself, and the like-minded of GOtv and others. And therefore, this means what? That most likely, those PGs, most likely that the Oburu may not control, the head of state will be controlling them. And this is the way that things will
So you do expect going forward that William Ruto will be present at ODM party parliamentary group meetings?
The manner in which the statement he released tells me he is going to use every coin to make sure that what he wants to do with ODM is not going to be split, and is going to be. What we will find is that few members will be having what we call independent decisions, even during the voting. But there is a big team which will be controlled by that particular element of broad-based arrangement.
So according to Bonagakuya, the controlling factor or the main coalescing factor will be William Ruto. That in the absence of Raila Odinga, William Ruto has to take over the mantle of ensuring that he is the one who directs ODM party on what to do. Do you agree? Because parliamentary group meetings are very important, especially in marshalling support for government policy and legislation.
Not necessarily. And I think one person who is, I would say maybe a smart politician, is William Ruto, because he knows when the former president endorsed the late prime minister, what happened is there was like a fever or a fear of the continuation of the ruling of the former president. And so that's why some people who also even might be supporting the former prime minister decided to withdraw, because they didn't want the hand of Uhuru, like continuation of Uhuru's government in Azimio. And so out of that experience, might be even if he would do it, he might do it behind the scenes, but allow ODM to chart its own way. That would be my thinking. But all the same, let me go back to the issue of the bills. Because it is important as we call members names that we wish to call them, that we also say that is why we have an election after every 5 years. And that is why the likes of Wakili, they can also offer themselves to go in parliament and pass the laws as they wish. But passing of a law in parliament goes through a process. By the time you're doing the first reading, even for that law to be approved, to actually start the first reading, then there's a lot of even public participation, people are given a chance, and some of these bills go through the committees even before they come out to the floor of the House. By the time they're coming to the floor of the House, is second reading when the report is tabled. And so it's not that MPs wake up one day and one morning and decides to pass a law. It actually normally takes more than a year. I have myself some bills that I started that have not even seen the end of the bills till now.
But the health
and some
law
of them,
3 days.
The health law, which was also an amendment, is a very different
The
one.
digital health laws were very new
Wakili,
laws.
I allowed you to speak, so I would also expect that you allow me to speak.
Go ahead.
And so there are also different approaches in different laws depending on the interest. There are some that heavily the government is interested, and maybe the government does a lot of lobbying. There are some that the government is not interested, but that does not gag anyone as a member of parliament to give you a view. Even as Wakili refers to the issue of the finance bill that really brought this nation almost to a standstill, there were people who still also had their own opinion. And by the time the first reading was done, by the time the report was done, there was even a way that had also suggested some amendments to be done. There were, of course, the government then rushed a few things, and that is why we ended up where we got into that finance bill. And I think if we took our time as it had been planned before, even when people went to State House, people were really not supporting that finance bill, and they were taken through, and there were recommendations on the amendments until when the Speaker said we are only receiving amendments up to this time. Then by the time even these amendments are supposed to be pushed, people withdrew from the floor of the House. We are not going to amend, like all the amendments were withdrawn. There was a lot of drama, and it also depends on the law and what the interest is. But any member of parliament has freedom to express. You may not have to agree 100%. And I may disagree with some certain part of the law, and it might be passed in the House, but I'll have been given a chance to express myself. But secondly...
Did you have any concerns?
Secondly, that's what I was saying.
Did you have any concerns over some of the provisions of the Cybercrimes Act?
We have even had that discussion. I wanted to remind you here on this show about the same things. Because some of the things that have been passed in this bill, and this is not the only bill, by the way, I think there were almost 6 bills. And it's also good, it's also good for people to know that when Parliament passes the bills, then the Speaker of the National Assembly, the Clerk of the National Assembly, and maybe members, either the member or the chair, who was pushing the bill, they now attend State House so that then the bills can be signed. So I know there had been a lot of when did the president sign, what had happened, really. At that tail end, sometimes what the president can only do is to say, I am sending this with the reservations
So
back
you
to
agree with
Parliament.
Wakili, you agree with Wakili that the criticism towards the president...
It's not about the president.
It is about you members of the
That's what I'm saying. It had already passed through the
I think
National
you're in
Assembly.
agreement there.
That one, of course, 100%. And even when we criticize a law, I know if we go through, not all laws are 100%. And even when we're passing the 2010 Constitution, remember we're told 70% is good, we have 30% that we can still amend. Have we amended up to today? Not
Do you
really.
think that the conduct of the National Assembly
So
in this instance was
it's not about the conduct of National Assembly. I would want specific. I would want specific.
Do you feel that
issues.
the conduct of the National Assembly was purely influenced by the broad?
No, it was not. It was not. These are things. Some of the things that some of these bills are addressing are things that have affected you and me. And I think I can tell you. I can tell you personally. And I can tell you, we have had even people opening even a page like on Facebook and saying, I'm giving loans. And when we even go to the DCI, when we even go and try and find out, there was no law that you, the state, or when we go and to the DCI and everything else, they say up to here, we cannot act because there's no law.
There is.
So we cannot 100% say that this law is 100% bad. What Wakili should do, and because there was that public participation, did he, when this law was advertised, did he give his opinion also? Because it's not just about members of parliament are very few, but what opinion did you give when these laws were published?
Okay.
And were these opinions taken by the committee or were they ignored?
That's
where we start from.
Because we may
that's where we start from.
We may be excusing an even bigger chunk of people who should have been involved, because the legislative process is very elaborate and includes even public participation. How come, even as Kenyans, because this has been challenged in court, we are waiting till the tail end of the process, after the president has assented to the bill, for there to be hue and cry about something that has gone through a very elaborate legislative process?
Public participation in this country. We had public participation. Now, allow me to use this example of the digital health laws. The digital health laws underwent public participation. The NHIF went and showed up in that health committee. I have the report. It's in the public domain. The NHIF saying that, look, these are the problems that we will encounter if and when this SHA, whatever thing, is implemented. It's playing out. Were those considerations ever taken into account? They were not. And you, as the Kenyan person, every single day, there's a directive, there is a public advertisement. Mm-hmm. Oh, you can gain access to a copy of this law at www.blah, blah, blah, blah. How many Kenyans have that access to that website? How many Kenyans have that time? What is the primary role of a member of the National Assembly, if not even to go back to the constituency and say that we are about to pass a law that will allow the government to have spyware on your phone, on your laptop, on your website? And you say, what do you mean? They redefined Section 2 of that Computer Misuse and Cybercrime Act in the National Assembly to say and to mean access includes the government, this committee called the Computer Misuse and Cybercrime Committee, to access your gadget, load whatever software that is, and disable it. Because you cannot disable a laptop or any computer gadget remotely without you having the software to do it. So I say, you can tell the Kenyan people, you had the opportunity to do it, but you didn't do it as much as you want. But the primary duty and responsibility of a member of the National Assembly is to scrutinize that bill. You're getting paid, for heaven's sake, close to $1 million or over $1 million.
But Wakili, we must agree that even the general public, because ignorance is no excuse in this. Yes.
Yes.
And we have professional bodies which will be affected directly by some of these provisions. The Union of Journalists, for example, the Law Society of Kenya, for example. How come this is only coming out and people heading to court after the president has assented to it? How come the conversation was not as robust about challenging some of the provisions of these bills which were public, during that legislative process? Why wait until it becomes law?
Three things. Number one, Kenyans are preoccupied with the hustle, the deliberate. I mean, you want to earn your honest living in these harsh economic times. So really, how many Kenyans will even gain access by a newspaper, for instance?
I'm talking about the professionals, professional bodies, for example, that have always been quite vocal in some of the... If it was about business, KEPSA and the rest would be very interested in this. KEPSA, for example, if it was to do with private business. Even with the Cybercrimes Act, there are professional bodies that are involved. How come the conversation was not as robust?
Their spaces have thinned out. Their spaces have thinned out. It's not like before. And I don't know why there is this fixation. And I see it now sort of, playing out in what we are seeing at this amendment of digitalization, digitalism. This idea that the essence of life, the human 2.0 is where we should be getting, the transhumanism, where you need to augment yourself with digitalism, is what has led to the individual Kenyan going to their, phone. And a message that would have ordinarily been communicated through a memo, for instance, is now going to the spam side of their mail, so they don't have access to it. Were they informed? Were they alerted? Yes. But were they informed? No. So you can have this idea that, there is mass communication. We're informing the people, we alerted the people, we told them. But how many radio announcements? Note, right now, between the hours of 6 a.m. and 8 a.m., Kenyans are in traffic. But isn't that the best medium for you to communicate to them?
So the media failed in informing.
The media failed, that's what I'm saying. The media failed and the professional bodies failed. And what do we have? The main players failed the Kenyan people. They who were vocal in terms of saying that, well, did they hold press conferences? A press conference, you can call the president, and say that, look, I'm announcing to the Kenyan people, we are in stark danger of our freedoms being constricted and us even facing a draconian exercise of that power. That failure is inexcusable, in my humble view. Because when you hear voices coming from an individual, so and so, oh, they're branded, oh, that's an activist. I'm not an activist, for instance. I have always said that I'm a Kenyan here by right. I ought to speak that which, impacts upon me and the people that I live with or practice law with, because we have to speak out against this constricted, and it's gradual. Okay. It is like, the frog in hot water. The moment it gets boiling point, it'll be too late, because all these structures are the edifices of the taking away of our freedoms. It's all gradual, and it's happening with the legal endorsement.
All right.
Of the National Assembly.
Let's take a short break before I come back and even give Bonagakuya a moment to discuss this. Let's take a short break. You're watching Morning Cafe, and right now we're discussing what's on the front page of The Standard, the fact that President William Ruto has entered into law 8 bills, including the Cybercrimes, which is now an act, and the uproar that has resulted from that. You're watching Morning Cafe.
Is changing every day, and so should we, for the better. Each week, we tackle the big why, the question that should be on everyone's minds. Why isn't this fixed yet? Deforestation, global warming, and the adverse effects of climate change. The future isn't just something that we inherit, it's something that we create. Join us on The Green Fix as we tell the stories of those who refuse to give up. When it comes to fixing the planet, there is no time to waste. Join me, Shiksha Arora, on Thursdays at 9 p.m. on The Green Fix as we look into the big why, you and I.
For comprehensive information and education on your health, Body Garage is here.
Don't allow anyone to pluck out your good tooth, as long as it is strong and stable.
Cancer doesn't start today and you get the symptoms tomorrow. By the time you pick it or the time it is manifesting in you, probably will be there about 5.
Welcome back. You're still watching Morning Cafe on TV 47, discussing the big headlines. The Standard today has decided not to go with the politics. Of course, they still make reference to the former Prime Minister, the late Raila Odinga, but now they're talking about the bills passed on the same day and assented into law on the same day that he passed on. There's 8 bills in total, including the Cybercrimes Act, which this paper is focused on, and they say new law signed just after Raila's death waters down his struggles. Now, my question is, Bwana Gakuya, and we've questioned the involvement of members of the public in the legislative process. We've even questioned the involvement of professional bodies like the Law Society, which is one of the most vocal on this issue right now, the Union of Journalists and others, which I may not mention now. But we're seeing a lot of uproar late after this process has gone to the extent it has, and they've even gone to court. There's a petition filed by the High Court challenging the Computer Misuse and Cybercrimes Amendment Act, which was signed into law last week. Even the former Chief Justice questioning the same. We've not even heard the political parties talk about this. You're among the most vocal and you have a lot of space in the public forum. Does it mean that you, as a member of the National Assembly, agree with everything that is in that act? And do you see yourself as having failed in any way in the passing of that?
Thank you, Edimuli. One, let me try to put a light on that process of having a law. The law, the bill might emanate from an individual member of parliament, or it might come from the government. And once it comes to the floor of the House, it first steps to the Speaker's office. And when it comes to the floor, then the Speaker first gives the mandate of that particular bill to the committee that is under that particular department, if the bill belongs to a particular ministry or it comes from a particular angle, because every single bill must be linked to a particular committee. And that committee has a duty to scrutinize the bill, including taking the bill to the public participation. And at that particular time, that's why when errors came, anybody else should scrutinize the bill to the end and present to that committee the views that they would wish that particular bill to go. So, after that particular public participation, the committee writes a report and it tables to the floor of the House. And after that, then it is taken to what we call a committee stage. At a committee stage is when any member of the House might come in with amendments. And that is where the bill can be amended, those clauses that have teething issues. And that is the time when the bill is fully, because people, at that point in time, they are persuading of maybe a particular amendment that can be quashed from that floor through persuasion. And let me tell you, at the tail end, the tradition of the House is a vote. Whether it's an amendment clause, it's a vote. So that vote, if the majority are yes, then it passes. If it's nay, it flops. And that's how it works. And you have no business of, you cannot go to appeal, build that, unless we move now back to public, where this particular bill has come from. What I believe, and that's what happened, is that majority of what the public interest is given a room, unless a committee is biased. But it is given a room. And does not, most of the desires of the public are given a room. But does that not mean a member cannot come in to amend anything, even that has given a nod by public? He can bring that amendment of a proposal given by a member of the public at that committee stage.
Was the level of conversation on this particular bill, the Cybercrimes Act, which is now an act, do you feel it was robust enough? given the kind of uproar that we are seeing after.
What I can tell you, Edimuli, is this. The bill has passed the threshold of the process because it has gone every stage that it requires to be. Whether there are clauses that are still have teething issues, because I cannot stand here to say I'm comfortable with it. But
did you voice your concerns?
I did. I did.
And it's on record that you voiced your concerns?
Of course, yes. But I can tell you, after vote, then the majority takes the floor. And how it works. Whether Kenyanjui is in the floor of the House or not, the vote must take place. And the vote will decide where that particular amendment will be. Either it will flop or it will sail through. And after that, then the bill has no choice. At the end of the day, that reading is led. And after that, the bill is closed and it moved to the head of state.
Do you think the broad-based working arrangement contributed to the passing of this bill in any way?
What I can say is that, in fact, that is why there is a strong fight to control the House. Because controlling the House, you're controlling the numbers. And there is no single government which can survive without numbers in the House, because such a bill will flop. So there has to be a protection, and the protection is by numbers. And that is why even a vote is numbers. These numbers, they are based on that broad-based system. Okay. And they have a majority, must go their way. Okay. And that's how it works.
You seem to disagree with that. I've seen you shaking your head.
Whether Sabina may disagree or not, I can tell you for sure.
It is a broad
how it happens. Yes. And let me tell you, one might be having his own opinion. But let me tell you, the feeling of the floor, if you can check the floor during the voting, you can be able to read the numbers where they are heading to.
Right. That voting purely at the end of the day, despite the debate, the voting is purely down to the broad-based arrangement.
The voting gives a final verdict.
Yes.
But what I want to say is that I've been a chair of one education and then health. Before, we have had even communications coming from the president. And when we look at maybe even proposals, and I would say like even proposals of appointments, I am on record that we have rejected some of them, and with advice to the president and saying this one doesn't meet the threshold because of 1, 2, 3. It is possible for members of parliament to express their views. And all I want to say is this. This specific law that has, because now it's a law that has been passed or was signed by the president, even after the parliament approving it and parliament voting for it, if there was a big issue, even a body like Law Society of Kenya could have even written directly to the president and say, do not, though parliament has passed this, do not assent to this bill, because then it was still a bill, because of 1, 2, 3, and 4. What we have had as a society is that we react. And the big question I was even asking myself, do we have positives in this law? Yes, we do. This is a law that came, it's not a law that came maybe the year 2024, 2025 that has been passed by Parliament. It has, the amendment that started, some of them from 2018, all the way to new amendments that came in 2024. And maybe the biggest loophole we can find in this law is because some of the maybe terminologies that have been introduced are a bit vague. So are we supposed to be complaining or asking ourselves, how long does it take for a law to be amended? Because amending a law, if, for instance, a specific body feels that we need to amend this law, and maybe some of the terminologies that are there, maybe a body or the government can take advantage. If there are the issues about maybe the SIM swap, with the intention of committing fraud, by the time this body or passes that, yes, there was intention of committing a fraud, then there should be a clear trail of how the intention was. You see, if you're talking about websites, if you're talking about now Kenyan government being able to even collaborate with international bodies, because a lot of even content that comes in, and I can tell you, I don't want to name them here, there are specific websites that would write something that I have said, and they put it like verbatively, they'll put my photo, and they say, this is what Abena said. And for sure, I did not say that. And it becomes very hard to even convince anyone that I didn't say it, because it is my photo, because words have been there. Maybe Kenyanjui has not been a victim. It happens to all of us. But when you follow up, you're told this website is not even in Kenya. It's not even hosted here. It's somebody else who is controlling when they are outside Kenya. These things have happened. They have affected all of us. So let's look at how can we be able to amend what is not right, but we cannot just say the entire law is not good. As I've said, there was enough time for participation. It is sad that Kinyanjui will say that there's a website and maybe people are not able to reach out or to find out what was in the website. But a lot of these bills, like this one, I would have expected the people who have had an interest. There are also people who have access. The people who use a lot of digitalization or websites and everything else, they have this access. So let us also not just be complaining and blaming everything like to these members of parliament that they don't think or they are just passing this for the sake because they have been lobbied. That is not really the truth. The truth is there was a law, there is a need, and there was a specific need for this law, the cybercrime law, so that we can be, because we are moving to digital economy. Almost everything else is going to digital economy. I remember when the Huduma number came in, still people went to court and there was always this issue about the security, about the privacy, and about all these issues that are brought up. But look at the developed countries, even for the health sector, and what Wakili was trying to maybe delve into about this NHIF and the SHA and the SHI, whatever is happening with them with the SHIF, we might not totally blame it. Yes, NHIF, I was a chair. We did the final amendment of NHIF before the other parliament. When this parliament came in, there was a bit of some rush to now move into SHA and SHIF. Given the issues that were happening within NHIF, maybe everything that was suggested by NHIF may not have been picked up, but there are several things that were borrowed from NHIF. But again, remember, what was the need of the SHA and SHIF? Okay. Moving to the digital, and now that we have a lot of even exposure that is happening, that you can be able to track and trace. I can sit on my desk and I can tell this hospital has been paid this amount of money, and that is now where you realize that a hospital maybe that only has a bed capacity of 20 was being paid by NHIF a bed capacity of 100 or 200. Then we are able to expose these things. So it is important that as we criticize, we also give a suggestion on a way forward. That will be really how we can be able to help Kenyans.
Let's get the
but as long as we keep on inciting and saying it's draconians, these MPs are passing laws for themselves, let me tell you, I'll not be an MP forever. Okay. And I'm also affected by this. I've said, personally, I've been affected. Yes. If today you look, you go in and look for the Facebook and see my the many accounts that I have an account that is verified. But people will call me, Mheshimiwa, you are giving loans. I say, surely. I've been called. We have been called that you are giving loans. I say, surely, that is not even my verified pay. They don't know.
There's definitely necessity.
There is necessity
for these laws.
There is.
But, okay, fine, now.
And then suggest, then what do we need us to amend?
Is not perfect.
Well,
yes?
I have to...
What options do we have now apart from going to court?
What is the option? They passed a law, the Data Protection Act. They passed that law how many years back? 6 years back. The Office of Data Protection, the Commissioner of Data Protection, what does he or she do? Excuse me. You just see 1, 2 cases that they deal with, end of story. You write a complaint to the Office of Data Protection. Do they intervene? Do they even respond to your email? Rarely do they do. But that's the mandate they gave, the National Assembly gave, through the Data Protection Act. So I'm saying there is a framework, legislative, has been there, is there. So this is a lame excuse for them to say that, oh, you know, we have all these websites that are passing all these, you know, as the information. It is a tool of surveillance. It is an invasion of the Kenyans' privacy. Article 31, rights. You have the right to privacy. The government has no business intruding into your phone. But this law they passed allows the government, because they want to find, are you spreading information that, you know, misinformation? You just wonder what is misinformation. When you want to educate the Kenyan people through a website, and then they come and say that, you know, oh, you're spreading misinformation. You want to cause someone to commit suicide. Imagine, that's what they passed. Mm-hmm. That through your communication, you have made someone commit suicide. But what are the chances? What are the chances? How about Grok? How about Grok? How about these so-called AI, you know, demons behind technology, AI, that someone is actually activating, and you have a conversation, and this is a case in the US, for instance, and the parents of the deceased are suing, you know, I think it is Google or Meta, I can't remember which, because their son committed suicide as a consequence of this AI leading them to commit suicide. But, I mean, that's extreme. It's not every case, it's not every day. So our own constitution, in terms of Article 33, protects, you know, your rights. to express yourself. Article 34 says in clear terms, sub-article 2, that the government, the state, has no business venturing into your media space. So this law, at face value, is unconstitutional. So you wonder, why would they allow that to happen?
I have a question.
How do you do with the misuse of the
Allow me to ask this question now, because we're here and we've skipped or missed out on the opportunities to improve on this law, which is necessary, we agree. We need a law to actually...
But how about the Data Protection Act?
Now the question is, Wakili.
Yes.
Now we're here. What is the consequence? What are we looking for when we go to court? Is it simply to declare the entire law unconstitutional? Because is there an opportunity to improve on some of the provisions at this point?
Let me say, to answer that. Kenyans must understand the fundamental difference between the Computer Misuse and Cybercrimes Act as it exists and the amendments that were signed to augment that particular existing law last week by the president. Mm-hmm. The amendments are what is causing the hue and cry. The amendments are what are draconian. Do religious people know, for instance, the government will come and shut you down, your website, your TV, your WhatsApp group, because they consider what you're preaching is religious extremism. Mm-hmm. That is what that amendment says. So who is this to sit and then judge? Oh, Honorable Ms. Chege is engaged in some religious extremism. Article 7 of the Constitution says that there shall be no state religion. So that person who is a Hindu, for instance, takes the Gita and reads the Gita and then learns something about the Gita, or the Muslim something, or the Christian, for instance, says that, you're gonna go to hell. And then this committee, the Cybercrime and Computer Misuse Committee, it's a committee which has been there, but there is an amendment they put, JA, to Section 6, which now gives them power to come and shut down your website, to get into your WhatsApp group. And I asked earlier on, how do they get into your WhatsApp group? Through software. Keylogger, for instance, or Pegasus, whichever you want to call it. That everything that you type, they see it. Everything you say, they can convert your own phone into a microphone. Broadcasting everything. That's an invasion of your private space. And I ask, why didn't they put in that amendment that these service providers, Google, YouTube, Meta, Facebook, everybody, they have to have a local station here. You have to have an office that we can walk to, knock and saying that, why have you published this? And you copy that to the Office of the Data Protection, the Commissioner of Data Protection. The Office of the Data Protection has actually, in my view, been totally redundant to protect the rights that my fellow panelists here are saying has been the bane of informing this sort of thing. Lastly, let me say this. What happened to the Communications Authority? The Communications Authority now is busy implementing these provisions. Draconians say, oh, we've written. However legitimate is it? We've written to Meta, we've written to X. We want to find out who this person is, and so behind this. It's well and good. Why haven't you been doing it to stop this sort of? How about those mulot, bloggers, or the mulot, SIM swaps? The SIM swapper under this amendment will be fined 200 shillings. The SIM swapper, 200,000. But you, who then innocently forwards a message through your WhatsApp, will be fined, guess what? 7 million.
Okay.
The same swapper is doing much more damage than you.
Final comments now, and I think at this point we need a solution, Bonagakuya, because fine, there's hue and cry. The legislation has gone to the point of becoming law, and that was a question I was asking Wakili on, okay, fine. Because the only route now is a court. Are we simply looking to have these amendments thrown out, and would that be the solution, or is there any opportunity to improve on these laws going forward, as you make your final?
My suggestion is that since now this law has been assented to, the charge of the same law, because our constitution allows for anybody who feels that the law is unconstitutional, can challenge. But I don't think that the whole bill is a bad bill, because for sure there has been a misuse of these digital platforms, and it has been affecting to many. And what there is to distinguish what can be salvaged to give a control and protection, and what can be removed, which has become draconian. And what is draconian is those aspects, those clauses that can be cited by court of law to be deleted from the bill. But the bill cannot be, we cannot advocate to kill it completely. But we need some control in this digital platform. Otherwise, failure to that, then it tells you, then the digital platform will be working as a banana republic without any control. Yes, anybody can do anything, can call you anything, can do anything, can set you anything. And I think there can be a particular control whereby what is draconian within the bill can be removed. And the court has that jurisdiction. Okay. The court can make that jurisdiction, court can make the election to remove what is draconian and remain what can be salvaged.
A possible solution from the process in court could be throwing out the entire law that has been assented to. How would that affect the discussion we're having? Because as you say, there's necessity for that law. Does it mean that the process begins afresh?
Well, I would not maybe think the court would just throw away the entire bill or the entire law, because even these judges, they live in this country. And
if they find that some clauses
they can recommend, they can just strike out the clauses. That's what I was trying to push from Wakili. Like, what is your suggestion? Because sometimes we like complaining, and sometimes we want to, blow things out of proportion. As we talk about privacy, and I want to say this with a lot of humility, and we talk about freedom, there is also misuse of the freedom that we have been given, and also where your freedom ends, mine starts. So as you also want to be protected, that you have data in your phone that you don't want anyone to access to, but also do not use that phone to also spread things that are not true. It has happened. Maybe Wakili has not been a victim, and it hits very badly. And I can tell you, we have seen even people being displayed naked or without, in coffins and everything. These things have happened. At the end of the day, there's a responsibility in everything we're going to do. Remember, we are in digital era. And for sure, whatever happens in Kenya, if I post something here, within a minute or two, it is all over the world. Because now we are in this digital market, it's a village. And everything else is happening now. Everything else is happening digitally. So we must, as a nation, take care and make sure that we will also guard against irresponsibility. We also have to guard against misuse of the freedom that we have been granted. So at the end of the day, yes, there might be things that are not good within the bill, but then how can we be able to amend those things? And maybe even make the bill better. But instead of throwing away the baby with water, then we need to say, this is what we need to do, because we all live in this nation. And I want to say, as we protect others, we are also protecting ourselves and everybody else. It might be me today who is a victim. Tomorrow it will be the same person who is going to be a victim. So let us not just say things to become popular or people to clap for us, but we need to be very clear on the way forward, on what we really need to happen. And we must take responsibility. Wakili gave an example of religious extremism. What happened to Shakahola? And people are there and asking the government, why, when all these things were happening, where were you? Remember, the people the bodies were found in the coastal region, some of them had traveled all the way from very far. So how did they access to this information? Even when they went to this place, the government was not even able to track. So as we point fingers and say the government is not doing, then also how do we then help the government to do? And again, a big question I normally ask, who is the government? If we say the data protection, that you write an email, and it was not going to be responded to. So is it the law that is not okay, or is it that the people who are within the office are incompetent? Then can we address the issues as they are?
Let's allow Wakili to give his final comments as well. Is there an opportunity for this process in court to improve on the legislative process on this particular issue, or is it a dead end? And if at all it's not proper direction, does it mean that even if the process starts afresh, we will just be going round and round in circles, Parliament doing whatever they do, and it comes back to court and nothing improves?
First and foremost, I need to say the case being in court, I am preempted from making comments in terms of sub judice. It's a very sad day for the Kenyan people that we have to get to this point where the court then is compelled to render a decision on a very plain issue. What do you mean by false digital communication? Isn't that too broad? Isn't that the subjective interpretation? And she said, okay, you prefer solutions. I prefer a solution by saying, okay, we're in the digital space. Why don't you pass a law or amend this particular law so that you have the regulation of AI, artificial intelligence? They who are in software programming, I mean, that AI or whatever it is, the demonic forces that are behind AI, as Elon Musk said, that AI is summoning a demon. I mean, you're feeding that AI with the information that you want to articulate on or, to act on. They haven't passed any law in respect of that, so that someone is forbidden from creating a deep fake of you. Someone is prevented from using AI to caricature you. They didn't create that. I mean, they didn't amend that. So this is a law that is pushed and passed by they who want to be world oligarchs, using the corporate entities. And if you choose, they want a digital dictatorship. Why didn't they strengthen the Office of Data Protection, the Commissioner of Data Protection? Strengthen that office because the law exists. Data protection. You have a myriad of provisions that I don't have time to go into within that law. They didn't. How about the Communications Authority? The power then to say that, look, you cannot have a license as a digital operator if you don't meet A, B, and C, and D in terms of these regulations. What do we have today? Someone operating a website on Kenyan material in Ukraine as the basis, like an offshore account. That is what you have. We have ceded our sovereignty to these digital operatives. They haven't done anything in terms of regulating, maintaining, and anchoring our sovereignty in the digital space. What is happening is today we are suffering the deepest attacks of neocolonialism in the digital space. Right. That we need regulation on. Lastly, what will the court do? The court can strike out these amendments. Will that affect the substantive law? No. Section 6, which was being amended and has brought these draconian sections and provisions, still exists. Okay. And I lastly have to ask, although Schedule 4 of the Constitution does say that county governments ought to regulate and ensure there is control of pornography, show me one county that has passed a law to filter this pornography in terms of children accessing pornography. And we are out of time. Asante sana wakili Harrison Kinyanjui, advocate of the High Court, Sabina Chege, nominated MP, and James Gakuya, MP Embakasi North. Once again, the big headline on the Standard, out with freedoms, that bill that we'll be discussing here. And then the big discussion on all other dailies. An uphill task. Oburu fights to steady ODM. What did Raila say? And that's the question everyone is asking, because everyone has his own account or her own account of what the former Prime Minister may have said. It is the same theme on other papers. I think the People Daily here talking about why Ruto needs ODM to win 2027 election and wapelekana mbio ukurasa wa mbele wa taifa leo. That is a state of the nation, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Freddie Ndimuli. Morning Cafe continues after the break.